Did you know that the wealthiest person who has ever lived, the single individual who has accumulated the most wealth in the entire recorded history of humanity, was a black African king, and that his pilgrimage to Mecca in 1324 flooded so much gold into the economies of Egypt, the Middle East, and parts of Europe that it crashed regional markets for 12 years? Have you ever heard the full story of Mansa Musa? To understand Mansa Musa, you have to understand the Mali Empire. And to understand the Mali Empire, you have to understand that we have been lied to, systematically and deliberately, about the sophistication and scale of pre-colonial African civilization. The Mali Empire, at its peak in the 14th century, was one of the largest and most powerful political entities on Earth. It covered approximately 1.29 million square kilometers. Larger than Western Europe. It stretched from the Atlantic coast of what is now Senegal and Gambia east, through modern Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, Nigeria, and Chad. At its heart was control of the two most valuable commodities in the medieval world, gold and salt. The Mali Empire sat astride the gold fields of West Africa, controlling roughly 50% of the world's known gold supply, and the salt deposits of the Sahara. Gold went north across the desert to North Africa and the Middle East, and ultimately to Europe. Salt went south into sub-Saharan Africa. The empire sat at the crossroads and taxed everything that moved. The Mali Empire didn't just have gold, it was the gold. Every coin minted in Europe and the Middle East in the 14th century likely contained West African gold that passed through Mali's trade routes. Musa I, known as Mansa Musa, or Emperor Musa, came to power in 1312 after a predecessor left on an expedition into the Atlantic Ocean and never returned. He was a brilliant administrator, a patron of education and architecture, and a devout Muslim who took his faith's requirement of the Hajj, the pilgrimage to Mecca, with absolute seriousness. He began planning his pilgrimage years in advance. What he planned was not a quiet, religious journey. It was a statement to the world about who he was, what he controlled, and what the Mali Empire meant. His caravan included 60,000 people, his personal retinue of 12,000 servants, each dressed in silk brocade, 500 heralds carrying golden staffs, his senior wife with 500 of her own attendants, soldiers, merchants, scholars, and 80 to 100 camels, each carrying 300 pounds of gold dust. He brought so much gold on a single religious journey that historians estimate he transported approximately 1/3 of the total gold supply of the medieval world. When Mansa Musa arrived in Cairo, Egypt, in 1324 on his way to Mecca, the city was overwhelmed. His procession stretched for miles. His gifts were extraordinary. He gave lavishly, constantly, everywhere he stopped. He distributed gold to the poor along his entire route. He bought goods at whatever price was asked without negotiating. He paid for the construction and renovation of mosques. He hired architects and scholars. He gave the Sultan of Egypt gifts of such value that contemporary accounts struggled to describe them. And in doing so, he flooded the Egyptian economy with gold. When gold pours into an economy in enormous quantities, prices rise. Inflation. The value of gold falls because there is suddenly too much of it. Merchants who had calculated their prices based on gold's existing value found themselves holding currency that was worth less. Mansa Musa's generosity crashed the economy of Egypt, the Middle East, and Mediterranean trade networks for 12 years. A single man's pilgrimage caused a decade-long regional economic crisis. European cartographers began drawing him on their maps. The famous Catalan Atlas of 1375 depicts a black king in West Africa so wealthy that he holds a golden orb in one hand and a golden scepter in the other, sitting on a golden throne. His fame had reached every corner of the known world. Mansa Musa did not just move gold, he moved ideas. During his pilgrimage, he met architects, scholars, and theologians. He brought many of them back with him. He commissioned the construction of mosques and schools across the empire. He expanded the great intellectual center of Timbuktu into one of the most extraordinary cities of learning in the medieval world. The Sankore University in Timbuktu held an estimated 700,000 manuscripts, more than any library in Europe at the time. Students came from across the Islamic world to study astronomy, mathematics, law, theology, and medicine. At its peak, it enrolled over 25,000 students in a city of perhaps 100,000 people, 25,000 university students in a single African city in the 1300s. Europe's largest universities at the same time enrolled a few thousand. The manuscripts of Timbuktu represent one of the great repositories of human intellectual history. They contain original contributions to mathematics, astronomy, medicine, and jurisprudence that the Western world has barely begun to catalog. And here's why this story matters. Mansa Musa's story is not a curiosity. It is not a footnote. It is the direct, documented refutation of one of the foundational myths of colonialism, that pre-colonial Africa was primitive, undeveloped, and waiting to be civilized by European contact. The Mali Empire under Mansa Musa was one of the most sophisticated political, economic, and intellectual systems on earth. Its ruler was the wealthiest person alive by any measure. Its cities were centers of global learning. Its trade networks connected sub-Saharan Africa to North Africa, the Middle East, and Europe. Historians estimate Mansa Musa's wealth at approximately $400 billion in today's money, a figure so large it defies meaningful comparison to any modern billionaire. He is the only individual in recorded history of whom that can credibly be said. The richest person who ever lived was a black African king. The textbook spent centuries pretending he didn't exist. Follow us for more hidden black history on Michelle Duffy TV. Like and subscribe, because these stories deserve to be told. Please comment. Did you know Mansa Musa was worth an estimated $400 billion and his pilgrimage crashed economies across 3 continents? Drop your reaction and tell us what your school taught you about African history. We don't glorify injustice. We reveal truth so history can't repeat itself.